Before I get started with the greenhouse site work video, I wanted to mention that this video series is partially sponsored by our Patreon contributors. Our top contributors are TrueAquaponics.com, GreenLifePlanet.net, and GlassBottleOutlet.com. We do get some revenue from the YouTube ads, but even though our views are constantly increasing, our revenue is dwindling. Please consider helping out our channel by joining our Patreon supporters. There's no shortage of drone footage here. Every so often, I'll fly up to 300 or 400 feet and overlay an outline of the plans so you can get a frame of reference for where we are. The site is being prepared for a total of 3 greenhouses, but we're initially installing just one. Before any of the construction starts, an erosion control silt fence was installed along the wetlands to help prevent any silt from washing from the site. Even though I had a big sale of our expanded shale, there was a lot left in the pile, so I had to spend a few hours relocating it to a new home. While I was moving the shale, Gary got started clearing some of the stumps and rocks along the edge of the field. Gary spent a couple of days stripping off the topsoil. He would sift through it with the teeth of his bucket, plucking out the larger rocks, then pile it up around the perimeter of the site. While he was working on this, I had a guy come in and remove all the trees along the road. These were a bit too close to the power lines for me to attempt cutting, so I decided it would be best for someone who's insured to remove them. It's all hardwood, so the logs can be cut up for firewood, and the tops were piled up and will be burned at some point in the future. It only took a day to get the trees along the road cleared, delimbed, and stacked. I got a few cords from these, so it was well worth the expense of having Rob come in with his mini excavator to clear this out. We also discovered that my storage area for the hoop house was in the way, so I got to spend some more time relocating these to a new spot. Thankfully, it was in the shade. Now that the topsoil has been stripped, the area looks like a barren Mars landscape. Next up is to start removing material from the hilltop and filling in the low spots. Basically, all the rocks and rubble are pushed into the low areas, and the remaining dirt is filled around them and compacted. While cutting the hilltop down, Gary ran into the old stone foundation from the original homestead. I was originally told that it had been filled in during the early 70s to expand the field. There wasn't much of value except a few iron pieces and a couple of broken bricks and bottles. Elsewhere, he did pull out an old wooden wheel rim. It didn't quite fit on my tractor, so I gave it to someone that wanted it for their blacksmithing hobby. As Gary moved material from one end of the site to the other, he would also lay out and compact the material with his bulldozer and level the grade, carefully checking to make sure the site was perfectly flat with a laser level. were short several yards of material in the last corner. Thankfully, the edge on the cut side still needed to be tapered, so the material was moved from the far end to this corner. When it was all done, it was quite impressive to see how flat the area was. And it even matched perfectly with the elevation marks on the stakes the engineers installed. When the main pad site was done, the edge areas needed to be tapered so they wouldn't be too steep. The areas that were filled with rubble were filled in with excess material from the high slopes. We finally got some rain, which helps keep the dust down. There are a few minor high and low spots which are easy to spot by the puddles. When the greenhouse is put in, a gravel floor will be installed which can be used to fine-tune the overall level of the floor. Now that Gary is done with the leveling, he is taking all the topsoil and spreading it back over the site, except for where the first greenhouse is located. This will be reseeded with clover and alfalfa and will continue to be used as a regular field. The one last part with regrading the site is to clean up the area where the trees were removed. This involved popping out the stumps and removing them off-site, and taking out the steep embankment. Basically, cleaning it up so it will look nice. Gary has moved on to other projects, and now it's my turn to do some work. I borrowed my brother's York rake and used it to smooth out the area, pop some of the rocks to the surface, and get it ready for seeding. Thankfully, a couple hundred years of rock picking has made the job fairly simple. These rakes work really well for prepping large areas for seeding, except for the fact we once again desperately needed some more rain. Before seeding, I have my ghost driver run the tractor behind me as I scoop up the larger stones. The smaller ones will just stay behind since the mower decks won't hit them when they mow the fields next season. I also found this old horseshoe in the rocks. I'll have to set it over the entrance of the new greenhouse. For seeding, I'm doing a mixture of alfalfa and clover. It was supposed to rain, but the storm passed around us, so the turkeys have been enjoying their very expensive meals and taking dust baths. That's about all we have for the site work. Next time around we should actually be building the greenhouse. Hopefully we get a little bit of rain. The alfalfa and clover are having a real tough time getting started. Even some of the brook beds have dried up. So this is the first time I've ever seen it this dry like this around here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.